For 300 years, Viking sailors crossed the most violent open ocean on Earth, the North Atlantic, without a single magnetic compass. No GPS, no charts. Half the time, no visible sun and no visible stars. And they didn't just survive it. They found Iceland, they found Greenland, they found a landmass nobody in Europe even knew existed 5 centuries before Columbus. So, how did they actually do it? Not the myth. What the evidence actually shows. Picture the actual conditions. The North Atlantic isn't the Mediterranean. It's gray, it's cold, and for most of the year, it's covered in cloud. A sailor can go days without seeing the sun clearly, let alone the stars. There's no coastline to hug. The crossing from Norway to Iceland is open water for hundreds of kilometers. One wrong heading, and you don't find land. You just don't. And yet Norse sailors made this crossing routinely, starting in the 9th century. Not once, not as a lucky accident. Over and over, for 3 centuries, they kept a working trade and settlement route alive across some of the most unpredictable water on the planet. That's the mystery historians have actually been trying to solve. Not did they do it, but how. The least mysterious part of the answer is also the most important. They didn't sail blind into open ocean if they could help it. Norse sailing routes were built around waypoints, known islands, coastlines, and landmarks that broke up the crossing into shorter, more survivable legs. The route to Iceland, for example, used the Faroe Islands and Shetland as stepping stones. Sailors would hold a course to a known point, reorient there, and continue. It's the maritime equivalent of navigating a road trip by landmarks rather than a map, not because it's primitive, but because it's reliable when you don't have instruments. For latitude control on longer open water legs, Norse sailors also used something closer to dead reckoning, holding a specific latitude by watching how high the sun climbed at midday, then sailing due west or east along that line until they hit their target. It's a crude method by modern standards, but it's mathematically sound, and it explains why Norse sailing directions that survive in the sagas read like latitude instructions, not compass bearings. In 1948, archaeologists working a dig site in Unartok, Greenland, found a fragment of a wooden disc. It's small and a few centimeters across, with a series of carved notches and lines cut into its face. That disc is now understood to be part of a sun compass, a device that works like a sundial in reverse. Instead of telling time from the sun's shadow, it tells direction. A sailor would set the disc level, watch where the shadow of a small central pin fell as the sun moved, and use the carved lines to read off a heading. Combined with known sunrise and sunset positions for the season, this gives a workable and testable way to hold a course without ever seeing a landmark. This isn't speculation. It's a physical artifact, and modern reconstructions of the device have been tested and shown to work under real sailing conditions. This is the part of Viking navigation that isn't legend, it's archaeology. Here's where the story gets more interesting and where a lot of other videos on this topic get sloppy. So let's be precise about what's actually known versus theorized. Medieval Icelandic sagas mention something called a sunstone, a crystal that a navigator could hold up to a cloudy sky to locate the sun even when it wasn't directly visible. One saga describes a king testing this exact ability during a storm, using the stone to point out exactly where the sun was hidden behind the clouds. The science behind this is real. Certain crystals, calcite, also called Iceland spar, along with cordierite and tourmaline, can filter and reveal the polarization pattern of skylight, which shifts in a predictable way around the sun's actual position, even through heavy cloud. Rotate the crystal. Watch how the light passing through it changes, and in principle you can locate the sun's position within a few degrees, even in near total overcast. Modern experiments have backed up that this method physically works. Researchers have shown crystals like Iceland spar can pinpoint the sun's position under identical Arctic conditions. Physicists have run full simulations testing whether this method combined with the sun compass, could realistically get a ship from Norway to Greenland, and the results support that it could. But here's the catch, and it matters. No Viking sunstone has ever been found and positively confirmed as one. There's indirect evidence, a crystal recovered from a 16th century shipwreck, centuries after the Viking Age, that shows the technique may have persisted long after compasses existed. But an actual confirmed Viking era sunstone with clear archaeological context proving it was used this way, that doesn't exist yet. So the honest answer is the sunstone is a well supported theory backed by real physics and real historical texts, not a confirmed fact. Most documentaries skip that distinction. We're not going to. Beyond instruments, real or theorized, Norse sailors also relied on something harder to quantify but well documented in seafaring cultures worldwide: environmental reading. Birds were one of the most reliable signs. Certain species don't fly far from land, so spotting them, especially at dawn or dusk when they're commuting to and from nesting grounds, could point a ship toward the nearest coastline. There's a famous account of a Norse settler in Iceland who reportedly released ravens at sea specifically to watch which direction they flew, then followed them to find land. Wave patterns mattered too. Long, consistent ocean swells behave differently once they start interacting with a landmass. They refract and interfere in patterns experienced sailors could learn to feel through the hull. And temperature and color shifts in the water itself could signal a change in current or proximity to a coastline long before land was visible. None of this was superstition. It was the accumulated, tested knowledge of people whose survival depended on getting it right. No single method explains 300 years of successful North Atlantic crossings. It was all of it, layered together. Known waypoints where possible, latitude holding by the sun's height, a physical sun compass for heading, quite possibly a sunstone for cloudy days, and centuries of accumulated knowledge about birds, water, and weather passed down through experience. It's not that Vikings had one secret trick modern people forgot. It's that they built an entire redundant system where if one method failed, cloud cover, fog, night, another was there to back it up. That's arguably more impressive than a single clever gadget would have been. 3 centuries. No compass. And a route across one of the most dangerous stretches of ocean on the planet that they sailed again and again. Well enough to build entire societies at the other end of it. The wooden disc found in a Greenland dig site in 1948 is still the closest thing we have to physical proof of how they pulled it off, and there's very likely more evidence still out there waiting to be found.